The oasis, once a sanctuary, erupted into chaos. Khalid's guards swarmed like locusts, their blades thirsty for blood. Rayyan fought fiercely, his movements a blur of desperation and rage, but the numbers were overwhelming. Liana, pressed against the rock, clutched a jagged stone in her hand, her only weapon. A guard lunged at her, and she struck, the stone cracking against his temple. His body slumped, but another took his place. "Rayyan!" she screamed, her voice raw with terror. He turned just in time to parry a sword aimed at her throat. "To the water!" he shouted, pulling her toward the oasis's glittering pool. But as they neared the edge, the surface of the water rippled unnaturally, reflecting not their faces, but memories. Liana froze, staring at the vision in the water, her mother alive and smiling, holding the very locket she'd just surrendered. "Beware the oasis, my child," the reflection whispered, her voice echoing as if from a tomb. "It shows truths and lies." Before she could react, the water surged, tendrils of liquid snaking up to seize Rayyan's ankles. He stumbled, dragged toward the depths. "Liana, don't look at it," he roared, slashing at the watery coils with his dagger. The stranger's voice hissed from nowhere and everywhere. The price was never the locket, it was her. A horn blared in the distance. Khalid rode into the fray, his face a mask of cold triumph. "Enough of this farce." He dismounted, striding toward Liana. "Did you truly think a desert rat could outwit me? The oasis was always mine to control." He raised his hand, and the water obeyed, hardening into a crystalline prison around Rayyan. Liana lunged, but Khalid caught her wrist, his grip bruising. "You belong to the throne," he snarled, "and I will drag this kingdom into glory, with or without you." As Khalid's men bound Rayyan, the stranger reappeared, tossing the locket into the air. It glowed, the metal splitting to reveal a tiny scroll inside. "A map," they sneered. "To the Starfall Vault, where the Sultan's ancestors hid a weapon that could shatter empires. Khalid wants it, but you," their eyes locked with Liana's, "you could wield it." Rayyan strained against his bonds. "Liana, don't trust them." But Liana's mind raced. The vault's legend was forbidden, whispered only in her mother's bedtime stories. A weapon of light, capable of burning armies to ash, or healing a broken land. She straightened, turning to Khalid. "Let Rayyan go, and I'll lead you to the vault." Khalid's smirk returned. "And why would I agree to that?" "Because you need my blood to open it," she lied, her voice steady. "The vault answers only to royal lineage." A beat of silence. Khalid's greed warred with his suspicion. Finally he nodded. "Try to betray me, and his death will be slow." As the group trekked deeper into the desert, a sandstorm brewed on the horizon, a swirling wall of fury. The stranger vanished again, leaving only a cryptic warning. "The vault does not forgive." Rayyan walked beside Liana, his voice low. "What's your plan?" She glanced at him, her eyes blazing with a fire he'd never seen. "To finish what my mother started," she said, "to burn Khalid's ambitions to dust." But as the storm engulfed them, the ground gave way, plunging them into an ancient crypt buried beneath the sands. Torches flickered to life, revealing walls carved with constellations and warnings. Khalid shoved Liana forward. "Open it, now." She pressed her palm to the sealed door, and with a deafening groan it opened, revealing not a weapon but a pulse of blinding energy. The crypt trembled, and the walls began to collapse. As chaos erupted, Rayyan broke free, grabbing Liana's hand. "Run!" But Khalid lunged, his sword aimed at Rayyan's back. Liana screamed, and the starfall energy exploded, engulfing them all. The explosion tore through the crypt, not with fire, but with a light so pure it seemed to dissolve the very air. Liana's scream was swallowed by the roar of energy, a sound like 1,000 stars collapsing. When the light faded, the world had shifted. Rayyan stirred first, his vision blurred. Sand and stone rained down around them, but the crypt was gone. They stood in a vast circular chamber lined with mirrors, that reflected not their faces, but scenes from their pasts. Rayyan's exile, Liana's mother's final moments, Khalid's whispered conspiracies with shadowy figures. Liana knelt nearby, her hands glowing faintly, veins of starlight threading her skin. Rayyan, her voice trembled. I can feel it. The vault. It's not a weapon. It's alive. Before he could respond, Khalid's laughter echoed. He rose from the debris, his armor cracked, eyes blazing with an unnatural silver hue. Alive? Good. That means it can be controlled. He flexed his hand and a shard of starfall energy coalesced into a dagger. Thank you, princess. You've unlocked far more than you know. The stranger's truth. A mirror shattered, and the hooded stranger stepped through, their form flickering like a mirage. Foolish child, they hissed at Khalid. You think this power is yours to claim? The starfall chose her. They pointed at Liana. It lives in her blood, the last heir of the first sultana. You are but a thief in the dark. Khalid snarled, hurling the energy dagger. The stranger dissolved into sand, reappearing behind Liana. Take my hand, they urged. The mirrors will show you the way to the heart chamber. Claim your birthright, or let him destroy us all. But Liana's gaze locked on the mirrors. In one, she saw her mother placing the locket around her neck, whispering, When the sky burns, you must rise. In another, Khalid stood atop a conquered kingdom, the starfall energy twisting into a monstrous storm. I have to try, she said, pulling free. She grabbed the stranger's hand. With a deep breath, Liana raised the blade, its light flaring as she plunged it into her own chest. The pain was excruciating, but she didn't scream. Instead, she felt a strange warmth spreading through her, as if the blade was weaving itself into her very being. The stranger watched, their expression unreadable. The blade has chosen its vessel, but remember, child, power always comes at a price. As the light faded, Rayyan's breathing steadied, the starlight receding from his skin. He sat up, his eyes wide with horror, as he saw the blade embedded in Liana's chest. What have you done? She smiled weakly, her hand trembling as she touched the hilt. What I had to. The desert's wrath, and the world fractured, the heart chamber. They materialized in a dome of crystalline light, its center hovering a blade made not of steel, but of condensed starlight. The true starfall blade, its voice resonated in Liana's mind, ancient and weary. Will you wield me, daughter of kings, to protect or to conquer? Behind her, Khalid burst into the chamber, half mad with power. It's mine. The stranger stepped forward, lowering their hood at last. Their face was a mirror of Liana's mother. Strike true, child, they said, fading into light. For the desert soul lies with you. Liana seized the starfall blade. Its power surged through her, glorious and terrifying. But the cost became clear. The blade demanded balance. A life for a life. Khalid lunged, Rayyan shouted, and Liana, with tears in her eyes, made her choice. The blade's light flared, and Khalid's scream was cut short as his body disintegrated into ash. But the energy recoiled, striking Rayyan in the chest. He collapsed, gasping, a web of starlight spreading across his skin. The blade's voice echoed, colder now. The balance is kept. But his life fades with the dawn. Unless you pay, Rayyan's breaths grew shallow, the starlight spreading like frost across his skin. Liana clutched him, her tears falling onto his chest, sizzling as they met the glowing veins of energy. The blade's voice echoed in her mind, relentless and cold. A life for a life. The balance must be kept. No, Liana whispered, her voice breaking. I won't let him die. There has to be another way. The blade pulsed, its light dimming slightly. There is always another way, but the cost is greater. The air shimmered, and the stranger reappeared, their form flickering like a dying flame. You've done well, child. they said, their voice softer now. But the blade's hunger is eternal. To save him, you must bind yourself to it, forever. Liana looked up, her eyes red but resolute. What does that mean? The stranger knelt beside her, their hand hovering over Rayyan's chest. The blade will consume you piece by piece, your memories, your dreams, your very soul, but in return it will spare his life. Rayyan stirred, his voice a faint rasp. Liana, don't. It's not worth it. She shook her head, her fingers brushing his cheek. You've always been worth it.